runs. He's still got Mackay, still got Mackay, still got Mackay, and Mackay goals.
Gibbons talking about selling candy and kicking a beauty.
What about this ball inside 50? Cottrell! From nowhere! Wasting no time, Jack News. Set shot. He strikes it beautifully. He's got it. The Blues win it. Jack News, after the siren, has won the game for Carlton. That is unbelievable.
Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. My name's Ian. I'm joined as always by my good mate Lockie, and this is the last episode of what has been a long and interesting year, look, to say the least. But I think we can all agree there is a lot of optimism heading into the next season and plenty to be excited about. And with that excitement, of course, comes the draft. We previewed it in our last episode. We finally got our selection with Jesse Motlop at 27. What do you make of him, Lockie?
I know. I remember us finishing our previous episode with the lids being off, and I think our optimism levels were higher than ever. And I didn't think they could go higher, and they have, because I was really happy with that selection. I think, I mean, the jury's out on whether he's going to play a big role next year with, obviously a few other small forward options. But I'm just so stoked. He seems like such a great fella, obviously from a good family, and it's just exciting.
I think so. Look, he's that small forward that some people maybe say we don't need, and we'll get into that, I think, at some stage as well. But he brings that X factor to that forward line, which is definitely something we're missing. We've got, a Durden coming through who adds that sort of pressure. He's that hard worker. But I feel like that whole forward line, we just didn't have that one guy that can make, something out of nothing. And now with Eddie Betts leaving as well, I think that opened up a bit of a spot. He is also that tackle pressure sort of player as well. So I think he has that all the things that can make him a really good small forward in the way we currently play AFL. And I think you just can't not get excited. And every time you hear him speak as well, you just go, what an incredible human being we have brought into this football club. And some people might like it, but I like the fact that he has a few different interests outside of AFL as well, with like filmmaking and his podcasting. It seems like he wants to do a lot of things, and hopefully he can make magic for the Carlton Football Club.
Yeah, and like we've spoken about, I mean, there was like the situation last year. We're not so desperate for a position, at least in my opinion, that we have to go to the draft just to get someone to fill a hole. I think some people will argue that that was the case with Jonesy going out. But for me, again, it's kind of like when we drafted Durds. It's like we don't expect this guy to fill a role this year. I'm optimistic that Motlop can, because we'll talk about our small forward options soon. But I'm happy that we went with this route.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think we'll talk about it when we get into like the small forwards. But you just look at the play he was, and I went through his profile sort of last week, but I'm happy to rehash a little bit on, I guess, my little pocket profile for those that don't know a lot about him. So I'd written down, it's basically, you hear the name Motlop, immediately you think X Factor. Jesse's no different. Obviously, Daniel Motlop's son. So he's got that in the genes, which is always beautiful. He's crafty, silky little small forward. He always knows where the goals are. He has a confidence in spades, along with high footy IQ, which is probably the most ideal Eddie Betts replacement in the draft as well. He's probably, his downside is he lacks a bit of strength, because he's small and he doesn't have a lot on him. But even though he is skinny, he does seem to have a bit of muscle there. So it's just like whatever he has, he is built a little bit. And obviously these small forwards, they don't tend to come in straight away into AFL football. They sometimes take a couple of years to get that body where they can actually compete with all these men. But he has had that time with South Fremantle as well, playing some waffle footy. So he has played with the men a little bit. So he's got a bit of experience there, which is good. But he's just that X factor, makes something happen out of nothing. And I think you've got to be pretty excited. You watch his highlights and you go, gee, if this is just a taste of what he can do, imagine when he's actually fully developed and confident.
Yeah, he screams that aspect that we were looking for, where it's like these forwards that are just, I'm going to kick the goals. Like that he seems to have that mindset where it's just like, I'm just going to be the one that gets them on the board. And that's what we want from these small forwards, where there's guys that we've tried down there who don't have that mindset. Maybe they're a bit more unselfish. It's just not their bread and butter going for the goals, but it looks like he's going to be one of those.
Definitely. So it probably leads, I guess, to my next question that we've kind of touched on, which is the question I think a lot of Carlton supporters are saying, which is, do we have too many small forwards now? And look, I'd love to get your thoughts on this because we heavily invested in the draft with our first pick last year with Corey Durden. We've got Honey there. We've got Always that's played through there. Zach Fisher, if you throw another name. And just even some other, I guess, smaller bodies that we have floating, maybe a bit higher with the Jack Martin, David Cunningham. It now seems like we've got quite a few people. Obviously got rid of Eddie Betts, but maybe people were going, Durden's the replacement. We've obviously got some other positions with the key backs and maybe that wing spot. Do you think that we have too many small forwards now, or where do you see the mix?
I don't think so. I think it's quite a good mix that we've got. There's a few different angles that you can take from this. Like you said, replacing Betts, kind of that makes sense. But I suppose I look at it from a bit of a different route, and you look at the actual players that we're talking about here. So a lot of people, when they're talking about this, they throw Fisher in there. We've spoken about this. I don't love him as a small forward. It's not. It doesn't seem to come naturally to him. We know he plays his best foot in the midfield. That's a whole nother story because it's going to be tough to push into there. But I'm not looking at him as kind of a premiership small forward in this team. And then you think of Owies, and we all love Owies. We love what he did this year. But at this stage, he's still a Category B rookie. He's, I think, 25 or about to turn 25. So, potentially not a whole lot of improvement left for him. So, I'm not personally banking on him being in our best 22 in a couple of years. Yeah. So then for me, it's kind of Dirds and Motlop. And then you could talk about Honey, who we are obviously both really high on. But I don't necessarily see him as that, stereotypical small forward. Like, he's a bit bigger. He can take a mark. He can do some other things like that. So, I guess one question maybe I'll ask you is, do you see a team, probably not this year, but maybe the year after, does Durden and Motlop work in the same team, or do you think they're going to be battling it out for a spot?
I think you can play both. That was sort of the reason where I stand where I do, where I agree. I don't think we have too many. We have the same on the list this season as we did last year because we lose Eddie Betts, bring in Motlop. Now, I agree. I sort of saw Durden as that, I guess, next into that team. And we'll get on to maybe the mix of the players that we see being in that with the next question I'll throw to you. But I think because they're different players, Motlop is a little bit more maybe slightly goal hungry, that X factor, silky sort of player. Whereas I see Durden being a bit more of that hard working. I almost see him a little bit of kind of what we saw at Always at stages. But obviously ceiling I see is way higher. Both of them bring heaps of tackle pressure. You've seen with a lot of teams, they tend to play a couple of smalls. You touched on Josh Honey. I think that he's a little bit more, plays almost a bit more mid-size. And I don't see him 100% being that crumbing sort of small forward. I see him almost playing a little bit more half forward, being the guy that actually delivers the ball into those two. So I think with the mix that we have and an Always, where I kind of agree with you, I think he's a really decent player, can step in when we need him, and maybe he starts the season because Motlop maybe isn't 100%. And is Durden still 100% ready to go, or does he need a little bit more before we throw him in completely? I think we've at least got some bodies that can play there, but I don't think any of us really, when you use the word ceiling on Always, are saying that he's that, locked in best 22 when we win the flag in a couple of years. We're probably seeing that the Motlops and the Durdens are going to take over that role. So I can see us playing both. And I think even if we don't, that's not a bad thing, because that means either someone else has stepped up and we've figured out that position and the system has worked without them. But then it just means depth. And I think this is probably the best part about this. We were crying out for small forwards, and now we're going, we've got too many. Never a bad thing. And I think with the high ceiling that I'll keep saying on a few of these kids, like a Honey, like a Durden, like now a Motlop in there, that's exciting. That is something to be very, very excited about.
Yeah. And I don't think this is the only position where we're going to have players that we really like that aren't going to actually be playing in round one if we're fully healthy. It's not just going to be, maybe if Durden doesn't play round one. Well, we're going to be like, I wish there was a way to get him in. But there's going to be defenders like that too, and there's going to be mids as well. So it's not just a small forward issue.
And we struggled so much last season to keep the ball in that forward half. So you've now got two guys that play so, pressure tackle hungry the whole time in that forward line. with Harry and hopefully, Charlie as well, nice and fit, the ball's going to be coming in there a lot. Those two crumbing it down, keeping the ball in there. I think that just solves a big problem that we had. Probably going on to the next question that I have for you is, with that, what is your ideal forward line setup? Who is actually in, I guess, that 6 or 7 that you have now? Maybe not exactly for round 1, but hopefully like mid-season, rest of the season. What are you hoping that forward line looks like?
Oh, I'm probably going to end this answer with a bit of a fence sit, but I'll work my way there. I mean, I think there's a few that people would definitely agree with. I mean, obviously Mackay and Curnow are going to be the two talls down there. For me, I'm just going with them as the tall guys. I'm not having McGovern starting there personally myself. I like the two big guys. I think Sauce and Jack Martin are both non-negotiable for me in that forward line too. And then there's a few different names there. I think Honey leads the way, and I would definitely have him starting on. And I genuinely then, it's, if there was such thing as a 3-sided coin, it would be a coin toss between Durden, Owies, and Motlop. For me, I think I would probably have Fisher as a better player over those guys. But in terms of us rolling out what's going to be the best forward line, I don't think it's starting him in there. I think with those experienced guys that we've got in there, chuck in one of the younger guys. And for me, if I had to say a name, it'd be Durden. I would hope would be the one chosen first out of those guys. Give Motlop a bit more time, obviously in the system to get used to things. And we love Owies, but I just don't see him in the best 6 personally.
If you were to give a 7th, like someone rotating in that forward line, would you maybe give that to an Owies, or would you throw Fisher into that? Or do you see him maybe just, he's more of that in that midfield wing, maybe float some half forward, but not in that picture? Where do you, I guess, you see that last say bench spot that rotates through?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, when I'm looking at the list of players in the best 22, there's some guys that are stiff. So I think I would probably have Fisher there, because I think he's still in my best 22. He's got to be in there somewhere. He's going to be able to play a role wherever it is. And obviously we still like him as a forward. Like, he's not a liability down there. But I think, in terms of the starting 6, he wouldn't be there. So I'd have Fish as the 7th.
Yeah. I maybe have him more in a different mold, where I'm not putting him into that forward line per se. But I still reckon he's in our best 22. So I agree with you on that. Mine are pretty much identical. It's, obviously Curnow, Mackay there, Silvani and Martin on that half forward. And then I've gone Durden and Honey to be the small forwards to sort of start the year. I think we've seen enough of Honey, and then Durden second half of last year when he came in for a couple of games. I think you go, cool, get that preseason into him, give him a few rounds to see how he is. And if he's maybe not ready, then it always pops in. Otherwise, just run with him. I reckon he's ready. From what I saw enough where even if he wasn't that finished article, I think you can roll with him and you're going to be absolutely fine. And then probably that 7th to start the season, it's probably going to be Owies, just because I don't think Motlop is ready. But I'm hoping maybe that second half of the season, Motlop's in the 2s, he's dominating, he's ready to go, and then you can throw him in, because I think that ideally that 7 with Motlop in there is probably what you'd be looking for. Just, Durden, Honey, Motlop, Silvani, Martin around the 2 key pillars. That's an incredible prospect to just think about. I love it.
Oh, we're blessed. We're now blessed with this depth. And and on the Fisher thing, I'm looking at this list, and obviously you got the 3 mids starting and a couple of wings. And then if you have 1 or 2 off the bench, I'm like, is Fisher in our best 6 guys going through the midfield? That's where I'm like, I don't know if I see that right now. And, he might be one of our guys who is going to be under a little bit of pressure this season, but it's good. These are all the good issues that we've been dying to have from 3 years ago. We've been wanting this situation.
Imagine finally having some midfield depth as well. That's something where it's like, who can we even run through there? And now it's, someone's going to miss out. So I love all of this. Now, I threw so many names at you last time we did an episode, almost like, I reckon I went had like 30 picks that we could have possibly selected. So I'm happy to say I nailed it. I said Jesse Motlop was there. You picked him up. So we'll take that clip from last episode and we'll throw it in to say I'm a genius. But look, I threw some names at you. Was there anyone else that maybe you had fallen in love with from some of the information I gave, or from what you sort of went on to listen to on draft night and in the whole weeks leading up? Was there anyone that you maybe wanted us to pick instead of Jesse?
it definitely helped me with my draft experience that episode, because it made a lot of these names a lot more relevant. I think when it got to night 2, Butler was a name where I was like, okay, we could be on here. And he was pretty exciting to me. And I suppose the other one that came up was Howes, who obviously fell a lot later than the majority of people expected. And he was one where I was like, oh, yeah, look, he's fallen to us here. We can snap him up. What about you? Run me through the emotional state as that all went down.
It was interesting. The whole draft was wild because we sort of thought that there'd be people that you didn't expect to go in certain places because we just hadn't had so much football from these players. So there was going to be some surprises. There wasn't that first round Angus Sheldrick that I had as potential one of our late picks if we traded back. He ended up going pick 18. I had, Lecalier as a potential big tall that might float to us. He went at pick 15. So I'm happy I picked a couple there that hopefully have some good AFL careers, so I can put my hand up and say that I thought they were going to be a gun, and we can keep that one. And anyone that doesn't, we don't worry about those guys at all. But probably into that night, I was pretty similar. It was like, gee, if Butler can come through here, that's probably the person I want straight away. But I thought he was going to go, and he did. But then it got to our pick, and there was, a couple of players available. And I think for me, my initial reaction when Motlop's name was read out wasn't elation. It was a little bit of disappointment, maybe just because I had some other people that I believed we were going to get. Like I thought we were going to get Connor McDonald, had pretty much set my mind on, perfect, we're getting this player. You beauty. Hawthorn snake us the pick before, and then it's just mayhem. Me looking at the draft board going, hang on, who's actually still available? And then the biggest name that I had there was Tyler Sonzi, who ends up going to Richmond basically the pick after. So he was probably the one that I really liked at that pick, just because I had him, if we want to do my little rankings that I had ranked all the talent, I had him around that sort of 17 mark. And that's where I thought he was going to get drafted in those teens. So for him to sort of get pushed back, the fact that he played a bit more of that midfield role, could play a little bit forward, I think, if you need him to in that half forward. But I thought you could almost bring him in and nail him down as that wing role that is just such a big need for us compared to maybe that small forward where I went, we can do another year with, Owies, Honey, Durden, and that's fine. You can maybe pick up someone in whoever you need next year, whether it is a first round pick or something like that. I feel like you can find them. So I was pretty keen on bolstering that sort of outside midfielder. You had Tyler Sonzi there. You also had, Blake Howes was another one. I think he ended up going like pick 39, who I had around that sort of
crazy,
20 to 24 mark. I thought, Melbourne were going to get him with their sort of first pick as well. End up getting him with one of their later ones, which is just ridiculous. So that was probably where I was really looking at things going, they talked about this half forward midfielder, guy that can do a bit of both. I saw the wingers being such a big need. We still don't really have anyone that can play there that is nailed on. So I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't go that route. But then, obviously after the dust settles and my disappointment of, damn, we didn't get the one guy I wanted. It then goes, okay, well, Jesse Motlop still, he's basically, if you look at my rankings, past those two, he's the next one I had. So it's not like we botched the pick and got some, who knows who this player is. He's a gun. He's going to be perfect. It was mainly just the positional sense that I just went, I don't think we're desperate for that small forward. But, again, dust settles, you start to think about it. And it's like, well, we don't have that X factor player. That is something I think I even said in the preview. We're just lacking that in the forward line. Motlop, I think, brings that in spades. So, slight disappointment maybe the start. But then I think, anyone that looks at the highlights, anyone that then listens to the man speak, you go, we've definitely picked up an absolute champion player here. I'm pretty excited that we finally brought this guy into the club.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I do agree with you in terms of the wing position. It's I'm fascinated to see how that's going to play out this year, because I think the few guys that are going to have a bit of a run there, I think when we start talking about the guys who the pressure and the eyeballs are going to be on, a lot of them are going to be going through that wing position, whether it's like O'Brien. Are they going to try Setterfield there again? I mean, Fish is maybe going to get a go there. What are they going to do? All of these guys that are trying to find their spot, is any one of them going to take that wing position and own it? Or maybe we're going to be sitting here in a year's time and going, all right, a wingman is what we're drafting or trading for.
That's the weird thing. Like you threw out names there. Yeah, your Fisher. Does Zach Williams go up there? Does Willow play there? Cunningham when he's back? Does Jack Martin spend time there? Like there's just so many names, but O'Brien's like the only one that you go, yeah, wing is his position. But then is he best 22 is the big question. Whereas pretty much most of the others, maybe apart from like say Willow, you're going, that should be nailed on best 22. It's going to be amazing to see. And I think that's the big position. I agree. If no one takes it, at least there's that maybe clear hole apart from obviously the key defender that we're clearly still targeting. But I don't think you can ever have too many guys that can just kick goals for you. It's the way you win games of footy, and I absolutely love it. But yeah, look, we also picked up someone else. We went with the Cat B rookie. So it's for people that thought we only had one, I guess, list spot left. We did have one left on the category B rookie, but the criteria to get onto that is actually quite hard to do. But one man got it. Now, I don't know if you can pronounce this man's name because I will definitely botch this. We got our big man. Now, I heard someone pronounce it this way, and it sounded so niche of how you'd pronounce that surely it has to be correct. So I'm going to go with it here. Dominic Aquay is how I heard it pronounced. I think we'll find out pretty soon whether I'm right or wrong on that one. I'll put my hand up straight away and say I do not know a big deal about Big Dom, but you see his highlights and you go, he's very raw, but I think there's definitely something there. He's that sort of tall defender, a little bit more on the intercept side. He's apparently said he's happy to play that lockdown role. He sort of sees himself being a bit more intercept, but he's happy to play whatever he wants. And big thing that took me, I don't know how you felt, was actually, again, hearing him speak and just how well he spoke about things. And it wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to do this. It's whatever the team need. I'm going to work hard. I think they asked him like the question, are you ready to play? And he's like, I just want to improve. Am I playing first? Am I playing seconds? I just want to get myself better as a better person, better on the field. I mean, I think he has the characteristics of someone that can work hard and hopefully get into our best 22 in years to come.
Yeah. And I think I spoke about this when we did our draft episode. I'm so excited. I was so excited at the prospect of us taking someone who is being called raw and who is being said that they've just got a big upside. They're not going to come in round one, but they could be anything. And I think that we are in a position right now where we can take on someone like him where, if everything falls right, he's going to be an absolute superstar. And if it doesn't work out, then we have the luxury of being able to do that because we're not, this isn't 2018 where we're like, okay, everyone we draft is going to be playing round one. It's just not like that. So I'm stoked for Big Dom.
And it's because he's that category B rookie. He can just spend years there. It's basically a free hit. It sits outside the salary cap. So he's got time to develop. And he's not someone that I think we'll be seeing probably for like the next, honestly, like maybe 3 years. We may not see him play AFL for a while because, as you said, I think he's still very, very raw. He's not ready to go. But he's exciting. You see little glimpses in him and you go, gee, if he can just get things right and he has that talent behind him, the athleticism and all those sort of like raw attributes that you need to play football, if he can obviously learn the craft, it's going to be incredible. And is he the perfect Jones replacement because he plays a bit more of that intercept role? Like, I think it almost ties in pretty well for that maybe in the future because I think Wiedering, we've seen how well he plays that lockdown. And if Dom said, I want to work on that craft as well, the thing with Liam Jones and Wiedering, where they were kind of different players and seemed to cover each other's deficiencies at times, the synergy was really good. And maybe that's going to work for Big Dom. It's exciting to say the least. And of course, we're going to big up these players, even if they're maybe not 100% ready to go regardless.
That's what we do here. We're just trying to inject some positivity.
Exactly. So when's the All-Australian Blazer coming for Big Dom? But so probably one of the last things we'll touch on, we've got a couple to go. It's definitely going to be probably a quick one. The rookie draft. That is where
we love it.
Yeah. I don't know where you sit on all of this. We re-rookied Lockie O'Brien and Matty Cottrell. So I wanted to ask just firstly, are you happy that we took both of those guys and they're back at the football club?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm unhappy. I think if somehow we got swindled and didn't end up with O'Brien and he went off somewhere else, it would be, gee, I wouldn't be too happy with that. So I'm glad that he's coming back because I do still see that he can be a best 22 guy. And yeah, Cottrell's a hard one. I mean, the opportunity cost of Cottrell, looking at the other guys that went in the rookie draft, I'm not like, there's someone so much better that we could be using on this. But it's that situation that we spoke about all year where we don't really see a world where Cottrell's going to be in that premiership side with the amount of young talent that we've got already. But yeah, so he's probably got, maybe this is his one more year to see if he can break through. And if not, then we might not be seeing him. What about you? What was your take on it all?
I find it interesting, definitely. I think it's a little bit weird as well. And maybe this wasn't 100% how it went, but it sounded like when we, I guess, like delisted them, we said, okay, it's all good. We're just going to take you both in the rookie draft. And I don't love that. I kind of wish that we maybe went more. So look, we've delisted you. We want to re-rookie you, but we can't like 100% say that we will take you because we don't know what's going to come up. Maybe another player will be available. We want to pick you up, but it's still a little bit of a wait and see. That's honestly how I probably would have played it. Definitely more on the lob side. I'm happy we gave him another chance with a new coach. I think he maybe deserves it. He spent 2 years of barely getting a string of games together. So I'd love for him to get, whether it's the first few rounds of the season, be like, he's like 4, maybe 6 weeks in a row, cement yourself, give yourself an actual opportunity instead of like 2 weeks in, 12 out, comes back for 1. I think these players need continuity, particularly in like a wing role where you're not getting the ball every single second. You're not probably going to accumulate a massive amount. I think sometimes they need time. So I'm pretty happy with Lob, but I think it's the same that you sort of mentioned with Cottrell, where we don't see that ceiling with him. And for me, look, I'm fine with having him on the list because who knows, maybe he develops a bit more, becomes what we need. But I don't see that sort of high ceiling. And I would almost rather go, okay, well, we know he's not going to be a superstar. That, I guess, his role where we've got kind of quite a lot of people in that sort of mold where they haven't nailed on best 22, they haven't nailed down a position. I'd almost rather us just take a punt on kind of like we did with a Honey, who was undrafted. Is there anyone out there that you go, ooh, he went through it. Maybe he can be someone that explodes onto the scene that everyone overlooked. And particularly when we have this key position issue now with the Liam Jones, there was someone there that Charlie Dean was someone that I mentioned in the episode last week that I thought he could be someone that maybe in those later picks, if we were allowed to use that 62, we could pick him up. And ultimately, we weren't allowed to use that pick, which is annoying because I would have loved for us to get him. And then in the rookie draft, he probably was that perfect guy, that mature body, plays that intercept role, can play a bit of lockdown. He was more ready to go than, I guess, anyone else in that draft because he had a year or so ahead of them and was playing for Williamstown in the VFL, won the best young player. So it sort of just frustrates me a little bit that you just go, okay, let's almost like clog our list for another season with someone that, look, chances are, to be pretty blunt, he's probably not going to be on the list in a couple of years if, I guess, he sort of stays and trends how he is. He already got delisted and re-rookie. So I kind of wish we'd take a punt on someone else. I kind of don't see the point of us just, bringing him back when there's, I don't think he can get worse than Cottrell. You get another kid and maybe he's the exact same, but you may as well take the chance for me. That's how I think I'd play things.
Yeah, where's these guys that are outside of like the best 25 for the team? Like what could you see? What could happen to Cottrell's career now where he would be able to break in and be a definite best 22? Like, could you ever see him becoming a prolific ball winner? Could you ever see him becoming an elite user? Like, what is it going to be that is going to make him like slot into this best team that we're hoping is going to be competing for premierships in the next couple of years? I just can't put my finger on what that would be.
Because, he has the running capability. That's his strong suit. He's that athlete. Yeah. He can run all day. He's got the engine. He seems to, be pretty hard at it. He loves to tackle. But then it's that decision-making that's lacking. It's that, ball use that you mentioned that's lacking. He doesn't win a lot of the ball. So it seems like quite a lot would have to go right for him to be that nailed-on player. And obviously, it's fine to have guys that are just squad players. I think you can get guys to be a role, and maybe maybe Vossi sees something in him that goes, oh, he can perfectly play this role I need in this system. Like there is a small chance that happens, but because you're already like manipulating the system to get this guy back onto the rookie list, it's almost like, just take a punt on someone else. I don't think you can get worse. And there's like another player that I think I might touch on as potentially someone that can take that last list spot and it's another one I will probably botch the pronunciation. This one's just a tongue twister. Blake Schlenslog. He's been delisted from Geelong. He was a former Cat B rookie. He's a tall player. He played for South Freo, so good mates with big Jesse Motlop there. He went to the Waffle, pretty much dominated. He led the comp in intercept marks, so he's that intercept more center half back maybe than like a Jacob Wiedering. So do you almost take a punt on a play like that goes through, and he's still available now, so there's still a chance that we can. But if you're putting up Cottrell or a potential key position player that fits a need, I'm going the younger of the two for me.
Yeah, I think so too. That's why I would have been more than happy if we didn't end up re-rooking Cottrell, especially because the player turnover, we hardly lost any players. Obviously, Betts and Casbolt leaving, and then Mickey Gibbons, but there really wasn't that many players leaving. So if there was another one and we were going to take a punt on someone with a really high ceiling, I like the sound of that. Do you have any kind of read on? I just love the narrative around the Josh Cripps situation, but do you have any thoughts on him with training with us?
That is very good. That honestly segues perfectly into
you're welcome.
the final list spot. So thank you for that, Lockie. It's about time you helped me out with that one.
No, I was due.
But yeah, so we've got sort of two players that have been, I guess, said that they will now train on with us to. It looks like, the last list spot will be, SSPs where we're going to get that last player. Looks like it's going to be a tall so far. And Josh Cripps, interesting one because he's really played as a key tall or a ruck. So from what he's played, he doesn't suit the needs. But I'm surely assuming that we're picking him up thinking that he's going to be a defender. Is that how you see things?
I just purely, envisioned that being the case. Hopefully you could be versatile, my friend, and you go down there.
Because, it'd make no sense if we're going, oh, perfect, we'll get another forward in because that's what we need. It's like, no, we definitely need a key defender. Look, he's 199 centimeters. As I said, mainly played as a forward or as a bit of a ruck. Hopefully he can develop. It just, I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him to me that really suggests that he's that perfect AFL player. He's obviously had a bunch of injuries, which has really stunted his development. Definitely was able to finally play a little bit last year. From what I've seen, it didn't necessarily blow me away. Obviously, has the Cripps connection, being the brother of Paddy, which if I've seen all the players, they already love him. They've been mates with him for a while. So I think from a culture standpoint, it boosts the team morale a little bit. But I don't know if he's the perfect player just because he was so overlooked. Like, I don't think anyone was really talking about picking him up. Whereas maybe someone more like a Blake Schlensog, there was a bit of interest from some people that, I don't know, I'd maybe rather go that direction. What do you make of, I guess, Josh Cripps being that train-on player?
I'm not going to pretend that I know a whole lot about, what he's done in games and his past. But for me, with this last lift spot, let's go for some of these extra variables that can just make us a better team and a better club. And for me, I'm 100% in on the narrative of getting him involved. If it makes, makes for a better year for Rick, like you said, all the boys love him already, the culture aspect. Yeah, just get him, make it happen. The brothers, maybe it's a nuffy take, but for me, with that last list spot where I'm not expecting them to tear the house down and break into the best 22. If there's some extra benefits that can happen for the club, then I'm all about it.
Well, maybe you're onto something there because Paddy Cripps has been, struggling the last couple of seasons. Is this the thing that's going to get his form back? His brother being in the team, is that final thing? It's an interesting narrative. I guess we'll take the other side. I tend to disagree on maybe just making that final list spot just for whatever. I understand the point where you're saying, I don't expect this player to come in and play every week and be the superstar. I don't think that's going to happen. But I kind of don't want to waste a list spot just on whoever. I want to try and make sure it suits a need and does something to this squad. And look, maybe Josh Cripps is that, but I think you maybe look at some others. Like I'd still probably prefer the mature option. So I guess just throwing some names out that we mentioned a few weeks back, like a Michael Hartley, a Jared Leanett, like someone like that. That if we just need someone to jump in there, do it. Because we obviously lost Jonesy. We need someone. I wouldn't mind just having a bit of mature depth for a season, just in case we need it. We can't trust Marchie with his body. Can Gov play that role? Is Oscar McDonald's body okay? He missed most of last season. We're so thin there already, and basically that puts it down to like what Lewis Young would like the only other key defender we'd have then. And then you're going, well, no, that's what then do we have to throw in Josh Cripps? And is he ready? I don't know. For me, I kind of would almost prefer going the mature option if we could, but then otherwise going for someone that you think has the potential to do it. And is that a Blake? Is that a Josh Cripps? Or is this the other player that is actually confirmed to train on with us? And another one I can't pronounce. So thanks, Carlton, for picking up all these guys that I'm too basic white man that only has lived in Australia and has never gone out of the country, that I'm not cultured enough to pronounce these names. So, good luck for this one. Tyrese Liu, I don't know. I'm awful with it, but he's 194 centimeters, is a key defender from Eastern Rangers, was overlooked. There were, I think, a couple of teams potentially looking at him, but he ended up obviously not being selected. One of the interesting things I read up on was he actually did spend some time as a midfielder at some stages. So that's very interesting to show that he's a little bit versatile and can do different things. He's quite mobile, maybe a bit more in the mold of the modern day defender where they can do a little bit more than just chuck him in fullback and, kick the ball and hope he wins the one-on-one contest. I kind of like maybe that mold a little bit more because maybe there's a bit more upside rather than someone that is a couple of years older and maybe hasn't kicked on. But maybe that's just being harsh to Josh, who's just had some injuries and hasn't had that chance.
Yeah. Well, this is why I can't get this smile off my face, because all of these options sound great to me. If we end up going that mature route and decide that one of these high ceiling younger guys isn't the option, then that's great. And then either of these guys as well. You're right. That's a big boy to have in the midfield, especially if we're going to be rolling Cripps out there as well.
Imagine
that is. Oh, yeah. We like the sound of that. But, yeah, all of these options are great. You can make great arguments for any of them, I think. And we're lucky to be in this position, I think.
I agree. And you can have, I think it's up to 6 people train on with you. So I'm happy to literally get every single one of these guys and just be like, okay, boys, battle it out. Whoever is best in all of these, like fight to the death, see who actually takes it out. Do some, Squid Game sort of things to go on there and see who actually can take out that last list spot. Because someone has to take it, and I'd rather us explore every single option available than just go, it'll just be maybe 1 or 2 people, and we'll see what happens. So, yeah, that's probably going to be the exciting thing. There's still that need. It's clear that they're going for some tall boys. Who takes it out will be very interesting to see. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on? Because I think we're pretty much wrapping this episode up. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on in anything before we maybe get into some questions?
One slight piece of news today. I'm not sure whether you have an opinion on this or not. We haven't spoken about it.
Yes.
Of course, the fixture for round 1 was announced today. And we get our game with the Tigers, which we always love. And hopefully this is our year to knock them off their perch. Do you have a take on the whole, why are Carlton Richmond starting the season off again? And then this year they've decided, no, we'll chuck a game on the Wednesday night and don't have Carlton be the curtain raiser. Do you have a take on that?
I've never personally been super strong on, we have to start round 1. We have to kick the season off. I've never been massive in either camp personally. I love the fact that we do. I think if you're going to give, a Collingwood and an Essendon, Anzac Day, and you're going to do these, Dream Time at the G gets, Essendon and Richmond, we're the other big boy that is one of the most premierships, arguably the biggest club in the AFL. We deserve a prime time spot. And I've liked that it has been us v Richmond, even though potentially sometimes the spectacle hasn't been amazing. We used to flog Richmond, competitive for a couple of years. They flogged us. It's been competitive the last couple of years. And I think the funniest thing is this year's probably going to be the best game there has been out of all of them.
Probably.
You've got Richmond sliding, you've got us coming up. This could be the absolute blockbuster that everyone's been calling out for, and now it's not going to open the season, which is interesting. Look, our game, regardless of how teams are going, pretty much sells out every single year, which is probably the big thing you want from a big blockbuster clash for the AFL.
Yeah.
I do think, on the other hand, that the grand final rematch makes sense. Get it as the opener. I'm fine with that. If it stops all these idiots just crying about nothing, about Carlton doing it, whatever, I'm not too fussed. I don't know how you see it. Probably the only gripe I have is, why in the world is the opening game being done on a Wednesday night? That makes no sense to me. That seems stupid. But yeah, do you have much of an opinion on it, Lockie?
Well, yeah. Are people hoping that Melbourne Bulldogs is as close as it was last time they played? Because I mean, yeah, if people are hoping for a close one, then they may be disappointed there. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really close to agreeing on everything you said. I maybe skew a little bit more towards the fact that I like it being a Carlton Richmond thing that we own, because so much of this is, and the best spectacles about the AFL are about those big clubs going up against each other, like the Anzac Day thing that you said, and we don't have that. And this is kind of the thing that we managed to own over the last, I guess, basically the last decade. So yeah, I think I'll be pretty pleased if that Wednesday night match doesn't pull the crowd and the optics that they're hoping for, and then the Thursday night game is an absolute perler, and then they roll it back next year. That's what I'm hoping for, but I'm not going to care so much anyway.
It's going to be interesting because you sort of mentioned something that got me thinking there, where, I mean, not every grand final is a good one. Think back to like Geelong Port, when Geelong got like the highest winning margin there ever has been. I don't think anyone was going, gee, can't wait to watch that one round one. You beauty. Like most grand finals aren't perfect spectacles. Most grand final rematches, I cannot really remember the last one that everyone really spoke about being like, oh, the grand final rematch. It was a ripper. We saw the grand final again. So, I don't. And sometimes, who knows? Does an interstate team win, and all of a sudden, the two teams that were actually in the grand final don't have the biggest supporter base, and
that's it.
No one really cares. Like, it's a lot of variables. I think the thing that Carlton Richmond was always a sellout, regardless of how teams are going. And look, the AFL's made their call, and we'll see how it plays out, which will be very, very interesting. Did you want to jump into quickly just some fan questions?
Let's do it. You want me to hit you with some?
Yeah, definitely. Feel free.
Mark DT. Let's start with him.
Ooh,
well,
beautiful.
This is going to be a question that we're going to talk about a lot as we lead up to the season in the new year, because look, it feels like the season's a long way away, but gee, it's going to come really quickly. Who are he's gone 3 big improvers for 2022, but maybe you don't have to give 3 if you've got a couple. He's got Lob, Dow, and Honey as the ones that he think are going to take the big steps. Do you have any guys off the top of your head? Obviously, you haven't prepared for this, but anyone come to mind when you think who's taken a leap?
I'd almost love to, and maybe, sorry for this big Mark DT, I might change the question slightly, because I feel like
Sure.
I almost want to change it. As soon as you said that, I almost wanted to change it to like, who are the 3 players that we almost like need to improve the most for us to be the best? So that's sort of where my mind went immediately, where my like big improvers that I was like, oh, if these guys do it, we're going to be a really good team. And it was sort of, I had like Jack Martin in there, who we haven't probably seen the best of. I want him to play his best footy. I'd love to throw Fisher in there. Finally, getting a full preseason, hopefully stays injury-free. Because the last 2 years, people forget, but he's missed big chunks of footy and then got thrown in at times. So I'll go Martin, Fisher, and who can I go for the last spot? I might throw out a name off the top of my head and just say, we'll go another big one. Let's go Zach Williams. We need him to be at his absolute best. So I'm going to say those 3 can maybe do it. What about you?
Yeah, I like your thinking on that, because if we saw, call it significant improvement from those 3 guys, danger. It is a dangerous side that we're rolling out there. And Yeah, if I had to put my money on where the big improvement is going to come from, I'm unfortunately not going to probably have it as any of those three guys because, yeah, they worry me. Like Jack Martin, for instance, I absolutely love him, and we keep hoping that he's going to take that next step. And yeah, it absolutely could happen, and it would be so good for our team if he does. But I'm just not extremely confident that it will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just throw one other name into that mix. That if McGovern takes a massive step this year, my word, that's going to be so important to us. So,
I agree. If I'm going to throw some youngsters out there, now they had a little bit more time to think, I'll throw three names out there real quick. I'll go Stocker, Kemp, Durden. They're your youngsters that are going to be nailed on best 22 absolute superstars.
Yeah, so much of it obviously is about getting the opportunity and the team to be able to prove yourself, and I think they're all going to get a lot of that. I'll tie a couple of questions into one here because they're both related to our Lord and Savior. So 10 Digits of Pie asks, what can and should we expect from Cripper in 2022? And then Blue Eagle 861 has asked kind of about the Crip situation, maybe not being as happy with his performance and leadership over the last couple of years, is thinking about like the next captain, or whether we should be getting a new captain. Give me your feelings on where you see Cripper for next year. Do you see the captaincy as something that like would relieving, in quotations, him of the captaincy and maybe giving it to like a Wiedering or someone help him out? Where do you see his year next year?
Interesting. Very interesting. As far as the captaincy, midway through the year, probably the end of the year, I was more leaning towards like, give it to a Wiedering. I'd love that. I'm starting to maybe go against my initial thoughts and say that, look, I think Cripps has improved a lot as a speaker, as a leader of the football club. And I'd really love for him to get this chance now with everyone new around him and the coaching staff in the whole football club. I'd love us to go, Cripper, you're the guy. You've signed this massive deal. Here you go. Next couple of years are yours to really mold this. And I think his just passion for the Carlton is there clearly. He loves the club. He loves the boys. And I'd love him to lead us there. So I'm pretty happy with him being our captain for the next however many years. And we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I love, Vossi being that leader. I think he can get the best out of a Cripper. I'm not too sure how much it would maybe alleviate his stress and things like that. I think there's probably been some other factors, and I'm expecting a big year from Cripper. I'm hoping. He's had so many injury niggles, and it sounds like he's pretty healthy now. So fingers crossed that can help. We've brought in some reinforcements into the midfield where hopefully doesn't feel like he just has to do it all himself anymore. You got Chera, you've got Walsh. Hewitt comes in there to hopefully help extract the ball out so Cripper doesn't have to always be the one in there hurting his body every single week. So I'm pretty bullish. And if you're going to go even more optimistic onto it, we've brought back the midfield coach in Tim Clark that was the guy there that almost helped him develop to become that midfielder. So if you're going to give the big raps to Timmy Clark on the reason Cripper was the midfielder he was, then that's maybe another big positive on the Paddy Cripps train. Where do you sit with the leadership and where you see his game going? Because I think, just probably to touch on the last thing, I don't necessarily think we need him to be the league MVP for us to be a good football team. I think he just needs to carve out a role and play his best.
That's exactly where I was going to go with this answer, because when we did our predictions for this season, I was thinking, all right, this is the year that Cripps gets back to that top 3, top 5 player in the league in the Brownlow, like putting us on his shoulders like everybody knows that he did. And that's, now that we're here, that isn't what I want from him. And that's not what I'm expecting. I don't want that situation where he is having to own that midfield. We know that he doesn't have to do that with Walsh. But then, of course, the other guys that we've gotten in, I think he could definitely have a much better season. And I'm expecting that he will, in a role where he isn't going to have to put us on his shoulders every week. And I'm so happy for him that that's the case, because he was the shining light in some dark times over the last 6 or 7 years. And I mean, I have honestly very little doubt that he's going to have a better season next year than he did.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Do you have any other last questions for me?
Let's finish off with this one. And this maybe isn't something that's talked about enough. And I think it's a really hot question. So I'm actually interested to hear your take. I don't think we've ever spoken about this.
Here we go.
Hope that's enough of a lead up. Rise Again Blues asks, do you love our theme song?
Ooh.
Does it still inspire? And they've asked us not to get angry about it. So I could see you getting fired up. Not really. Can it be improved? Do you have any thoughts on the theme song? Because I'll preface as well. I'll preface it with, I think sometimes I have this thought, not during a game, where I'm like, maybe I'm listening to like the Tigers theme song or something like that. I'm watching another game of footy and I'm thinking, gee, I feel like we're not on the same level as some of these theme songs.
Ooh,
but then when I'm at the game and we get the W and the crowd's belting it out, then I'm like, no, why would we ever change what this is? Because it's pretty unique, honestly, as an AFL theme song, as I think you'd agree. So for me, I'm saying, yeah, keep it.
It's an interesting question. One I did not think I would be answering.
Let's see how.
Look, I really, really like the theme song personally. Like, I mean, just the start, just the da 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 is just amazing. Like every club seems to have like a little bit in their song. I love that ours is just straight at the start, get you up and about. And look, I get it. Sometimes it may be like it's not the most fast upbeat song. I kind of like that though. And I think, when you belt it out after wins, it is great. I think it is one of the best songs. Probably the only thing that when the question, like, does it still inspire? There's probably just that one line that has almost been like memed a little bit now because we've probably been so average over quite a time, which is just like we're the team that will never let you down, that sometimes like you think about and you go, yeah, gee, they've let me down quite a bit over my lifetime, unfortunately. So if you're going to maybe amend anything, it's that one. But I don't think you can because, one, then everyone jumps on top of you and going,
that's what I was going to
change
say.
The lyric. And I don't think it matters that much anyway. I personally love the song, and I think it does inspire. Like, think about how many champions have sung that song at grand final wins. It's such a big part of this culture. Yeah. It's here to stay for me.
Oh, can you imagine the optics on that? They changed that line. And it's stuck with you forever. You'll always think of the never let you down line, and then you have to think, oh no, we've changed it because they used to let us down. Say, no, can't imagine. So yeah, good question though, because it's I think it's valid.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, that's probably going to wrap this one up. So, look, thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for a big year. There's been a lot to talk about. Didn't think we'd be talking about any coach sackings or anything like that. So there's been a lot more than we thought, which is maybe sometimes a good thing. But ultimately, we want success this football club. So that's what we're after. But yes, thanks. I'm just going to do a bunch of this to finish. All the plugs possible. Follow us on our socials at Navy Blue Corner to stay up to date with everything that we'll be posting. We'll be taking a little bit of a break over the summer until we start to get back into it for the preseason, which there'll be plenty of content. We've got so many exciting things planned. Head over to the YouTube if you're not already watching this on YouTube, because I know some will be listening in podcast form. We're in video. We'll be doing that pretty much all of next season when we can. Got some exciting things in store for that. We want to go live at some times to interact with you guys. A couple of exciting things as well that we will announce maybe at some stage. I'm not exactly sure when, but there's a couple of things to look out for. But look, thank you guys. You're the reason that we're here able to do this. It's insane with the amount of questions and interactions we get. We love it. So if you're watching this on YouTube, chuck it a like, subscribe to stay up to date. So those videos are always there and you don't have to go searching. And leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts on anything we've covered in this episode. Look, that's going to finish this one for season 2021. See you guys next time.